Hey guys, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is one that I've been really excited to do for a long time. I've been kind of planning it out in my head for a while. I am going to be doing a little challenge today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a full face of makeup where I allow random.org, which is a random number generator, to select which products I'm going to be using. So the challenge is that, I have a list right here in front of me of every single category of makeup, and each product in each category is numbered. So I'm going to go to random.org and have it pick from each category which product I'm going to use. And the catch is I'm not allowed to use anything else on my face today other than what random.org picks. So I thought this would be a really cool way to kind of shop my stash and use a combination of products that I probably would never have thought to use together before. I think it'll get really fun when we get into like eyeshadow and lipstick, because that might end up being like a crazy combination. It might not end up looking very good, so we're just going to see how this goes. I have the list here in front of me. I've got random.org pulled up on my phone. I actually got the inspiration for this video from another YouTuber named Decay Makeup. I will link her channel below. She has not been posting super regularly on her makeup channel. I know she's been really busy with like her family vlog channel, but I have loved her makeup channel for a very long time, and she has done a lot of videos on like project panning and shopping your stash and just getting use out of what you have, which is really the kind of content that I love to see. She actually talked about this idea in one of her videos where certain days she would just use random.org to pick her makeup for her. That way she knew that she was getting use out of her entire collection. So I have pretty much been in love with this idea ever since I heard her talk about it. I just really like the idea of kind of using like a totally random selection of products. I think it's super cool. So we're going to do this on camera today. We're going to see how it goes. For some categories, I don't have enough products for it to make sense to select randomly, so those categories are face powder, brow products, and mascara. All of those categories, I only have one product. Okay, so I just went through and used random.org to pick a product from each category, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you what those are. So for primer, for face primer, I only own two, and the one that it chose is the e.l.f. Poreless face primer, which is actually one that I have not used in quite a while, so I'm glad that this is kind of forcing me to use this again. For foundation, it chose the Urban Decay Naked Skin. I only own 3 foundations, but this is the one it picked, and I'm really glad actually because I really like this foundation at the moment. I'm only working on one concealer right now, and it's the Wet n Wild Photofocus concealer, so that's the one I'll be using. And then for powder, also I only have one of those, and it's the e.l.f. finishing powder in Fair/Light. This is another one, another category where I only owned one. So for setting spray, I do own 2 setting sprays, and the one that it chose is the e.l.f. Makeup Mist and Set. Again, I haven't reached for this in a while, so it'll be good to kind of try this out again. So I decided to put contour and bronzer kind of in the same category because I really use them interchangeably. And the one that it chose is the Lolo Sculpt and Glow duo. So I will be using the contour shade in this. And luckily this works really well for both bronzer and contour. I actually own 7 blushes. The one that it picked, I'm actually really excited because this is probably one of my all-time favorite blushes, and it's the Wet n Wild Color Icon blush in Rosé Champagne. So that's a really nice blush, and I'm glad it picked this one because this is actually just a really wearable color and it pairs really well with a lot of things, so that was lucky. And then the highlighter we're going to be using, now this will actually be really interesting. The highlight that it chose is the highlighter in the Wet n Wild MegaGlo Contour Palette, and this is a matte highlighter. I normally use this to set my under eyes, but today we are just going to use this for the cheekbones, down the nose, everything. It's matte, so it's not something I normally use as a highlight, but it'll be interesting to actually use it for its intended purpose. Okay, so for eyeshadow, I decided to categorize it by eyeshadow palettes and then eyeshadow singles, which also will include cream shadows. So what I decided to do is pick one palette and then one of those single shadows, and I'll somehow just have to use both of those for my look. So the palette that it chose, and this kind of makes me a little nervous, is the Wet n Wild Smoke and Melrose palette. This, I've been kind of panning this for a while, and I'm actually completely out of this shade right here, and that was kind of like the light shimmery pink shade that was really useful for like a brow bone highlight. So we really only have 4 shades in this palette to work with, but I think it's good that I have this Wet n Wild highlight that I'm allowed to use because I think I'll probably end up using that for my brow bone highlight. The single shadow that it ended up choosing is actually something that's new to my collection, and it's the Stila Shimmer and Glow liquid eyeshadow in Kitten. So this is a really, I mean, you guys probably have seen this before because it's kind of like a classic, cult classic type of shade, but it's a very, very metallic, shimmery kind of champagne color. So somehow we will be pairing these two together, and I am going to challenge myself to use all 4 of the shades in the Wet n Wild palette. So that's it for eyeshadow, and then eyeliner. I only have 3 eyeliners, and the one that we are going to be using is the Jordana 12 Hour Made to Last liquid eyeliner pencil in Black Point. So this is just a standard black pencil liner. I don't reach for this very often because I'm just not much of a, really I'm not much of an eyeliner person, but I'm definitely not much of a pencil eyeliner person. So I'm going to challenge myself to use this. And then like I said, I do only have 1 mascara open at the moment, and that's the e.l.f. Mineral Infused Mascara. And same with the brow product I'll be using. It's just the Wet n Wild Ultimate Brow Kit. Again, it's the only brow product I own at the moment, so that's the one we're using. For lips, so I was a little nervous about this because I had lip liner and then also lipstick and lip gloss in a separate category. So that was kind of a gamble because I didn't know if the liner and the lipstick that I chose would actually work together. But I got kind of lucky, so the lip liner that we're going to be using is the Jordana Easy Liner in Tawny. This is a great, just really universal lip liner shade, and luckily it pretty much pairs well with anything. So that was lucky. And then for lipstick, it's not necessarily something I would pair with that lip liner, but it's the e.l.f. Matte Lip Color in Berry Sorbet. And it's a kind of like a fuchsia berry. This is not a lip color that I go for very often. Now that everything has been chosen for us, I'm just going to go ahead and start trying to put together a look. So I'm going to pull my hair back, first of all. I am just going to start with the primer. Again, it's the e.l.f. Poreless Face Primer. This is a primer that I actually remember kind of liking, but we'll see. It's got a very soft feel to it, but one thing about this primer is it has a very strong, like, tea tree oil scent. At least that's what I'm smelling. But, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad smell, it's just very noticeable. So next we have foundation. I'm very happy that we'll be using the Urban Decay Naked Skin. Mine is in the shade 2.0. I really like to apply this with a beauty blender type sponge. This is the Flower, I think it's called the 3-in-1 blending sponge. Pretty much just like to do 1 full pump, and then we'll kind of see where we want to go from there if we want more. Actually, I haven't used this foundation yet with this primer, so I'm curious to see how it applies. This foundation definitely has lighter coverage when I use it with a sponge as opposed to a brush, but I also just really like the finish that I get with a sponge better. It just looks a little bit more natural and kind of helps it melt into the skin just a little bit better. So I usually do apply a little bit more when I use the sponge, just to get a little bit more coverage. Okay, so my sponge just fell on the floor, and now I don't want to use that, so I'm just going to use my fingers to apply a little bit more of this in the areas that need it. Okay, so now that the foundation is on, I just blended in the Wet n Wild Photofocus concealer under my eyes, and then I'm going to set it with the e.l.f. Beautifully Bare Finishing Powder. Alright, and again, the contour bronzer we're going to be using today is the one in the Lolo Sculpt and Glow Contour Duo. So I'm going to start by just kind of doing some light contouring, nothing too drastic. That ended up being a lot heavier than I had anticipated. Oh well. I'm going to just use that to bronze up the rest of my face. And then for blush, this one is really easy. It's just the Wet n Wild Color Icon Blush. This is one of my favorites. I feel like I'm being a bit more heavy-handed than usual today, but that's alright. So now I'm going to try this Wet n Wild MegaGlo Dulce de Leche highlight. This will be interesting because I've never used this as an actual regular highlight before. Like I said, I normally just use this to set my under eyes. So I'm going to try it with this fan brush from Eco Tools. We'll just see what happens. Worst comes to worst, it just doesn't really show up. I'm just kind of highlighting where I normally would highlight, so cheekbones and then the bridge of the nose, a little bit on the forehead, and the chin. So I'm not really seeing much of that really showing up. I think that my skin is just already so pale that that kind of a shade doesn't really do a whole lot for me when it's used as a highlighter. So I think that that takes care of the face makeup. I'm going to go ahead and prime my eyelids and do my brows off camera, and then we will get into the eyeshadow. Okay, so brows are done and my eyelids have been primed. So now I'm just going to start with the Wet n Wild Smoke and Melrose palette, and I'm just going to use this mauve shade to begin with, just as a transition color in the crease. Just going to lay that down with a fluffy brush from Milani. And I'm planning on saving the Stila shadow for the end of this look. So since I'm planning on putting this Stila Kitten liquid shadow on the main part of the lid, I'm mainly going to focus on the crease and the outer corner for now. Not really sure where this is going, but we're just going to kind of play it by ear. So now I'm taking a smaller crease brush. This is the e.l.f. crease brush. I'm just going to go into this shimmery taupe color here and kind of put that in the crease as well as a little bit in the outer corner. Also, in case you guys were unaware, this palette is actually part of my project pan right now, so this is a really great way to get a little bit more use out of it. The main shade that I'm trying to use up is this mauve shade here, and then the other three shades I'm just trying to get as much use out of as I can. So this is a great little challenge to kind of help me do that. Then I'm going to take a little bit more of a targeted crease brush, so I'm just going to go use this burgundy shade in my outer corner. And into the crease as well. So the one thing that I'm kind of missing here is like a light cream color to kind of help me clean up the edges and also to highlight the brow bone. So I'm actually going to go back to this Wet n Wild highlight here that we used for the face and just kind of use that as my brow bone highlight. And also just to kind of clean up the edges because things got a little messy. So now I'm going to use the Stila Shimmer and Glow Liquid Shadow on the lid. I don't have a ton of experience using this yet, so I'm a little nervous, but I'm going to be using this pointed concealer brush from Eco Tools to help me kind of blend out the edges. I think I've noticed that you kind of have to work fast with this at blending it because it does dry down rather quickly. At least that's what I've noticed so far. I'm just going to put this mainly on the inner third of my lid. So that is so pretty. I've really been enjoying this liquid shadow from Stila. The shade is definitely right up my alley. So I do feel like I need to go back into some of the powder shadows just to kind of blend out the edges of that a little bit. That liquid shadow is kind of tricky. I'm still learning how to use it, I think. So I'm just going to go back and forth now between the taupe and the burgundy and just kind of blend out the edges there a little. Since I do want to try to use every single shade in this palette, I am going to take a little bit of this kind of coppery gold shimmery color and just smudge it along the inner part of the lower lash line. I really like using it for that, but I don't like using that color all over the lid just because it can kind of make my eyes look a little bit red for some reason. I'm just going to kind of use it to brighten the lower lash line, and it is really pretty for that. So I think that's all I'm going to do for eyeshadow. So now I'm going to use this Jordana liquid liner, and I'm just going to kind of put it all over the lash line. I think I'm mainly just going to tightline with it. I may try to do a wing, but we'll see. We'll just see where it goes. Okay, so I kind of ended up getting a little bit of a thicker line than what I wanted with the pencil on the top. That's why I really don't like to use pencil liners on the upper lash line, but that's just what we're working with today. I tried to do a little bit of a wing, but it didn't really work, so I'm not very happy with that. I know a lot of people really like this liner, but I don't think I like pencil liners. So I'm going to go ahead and do my mascara, and then we will do the lips. So mascara is done. I did about 2 coats on the upper lashes, and then a light coat on the lower lash line. So now let's do the lips. So this one, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I've just got the Jordana lip liner in Tawny and the e.l.f. matte lip color in Berry Sorbet. It's an interesting combination, but it certainly could be worse. So I'm just going to fill in my lips, or line my lips with the lip liner real quick. I'm predicting that the lip liner won't even really show up through the lipstick, because this is a really like bright, bold lipstick. So I ended up just kind of mostly filling in my lips with that, and now we're just going to go over the top with it with this nice, rich berry color. So I just realized I forgot to use that setting spray, but we'll use it now. I normally like to do this before I do eye makeup, but... Alright. Okay, so there is the finished look. I'm actually pretty happy with the way this turned out. I think it could have turned out a lot weirder. So I'm just going to kind of go through and do like a little rundown of how everything was. So this e.l.f. Poreless Face Primer, again, like I said, is something that I haven't really been reaching for a ton, so I'm glad I got to pull it back out again. But I really don't feel like it did a whole lot in the way of actually filling in my pores. I can definitely still see my pores, but I mean, I also don't really feel like it helped the foundation go on any more smoothly than normal, but I really like this foundation on its own anyway. I don't ever really feel like I need a primer with it. But it was nice to get some use out of that primer again. I don't really think this primer is anything special, to be honest with you. It's probably something I'll end up using up and then not really purchasing again. This Lily Lolo contour shade, I feel like it worked pretty well. This isn't my favorite contour. I don't feel like it blends the best, but it works pretty well. I'm able to work with it. I ended up going a little bit deeper than I intended to, but I think it looks fine. And then this Wet n Wild blush in Rosé Champagne, this is always just really easy to work with, so I was really happy that this is the one that we selected. It blended really nicely into that bronzer and contour, so I was really happy with that, of course. The highlight from the Dulce de Leche duo from Wet n Wild, I didn't really feel like it did anything for me, and that's probably just because I'm so pale. I'm sure it would work better on someone with a deeper skin tone, but I did feel like I was kind of missing like a nice shimmery highlight color. It was still good to kind of try that out, because I hadn't really tried that as a highlighter before, and now I know, and I'll probably just stick to using that as an under eye setting powder from now on. So I'm actually really pleased with this eyeshadow look. It kind of ended up being just like a nice like mauve-y, rosy kind of look. I do really enjoy this Wet n Wild Smoke and Melrose palette, and I'm glad that I was able to get a little bit more use out of it since it is in my project pan currently. And so of course I do love this palette. The only shade in here that I don't really love is this bottom kind of coppery gold shade, but I typically do just use that kind of as a lower liner, and it looks nice for that. And then like I said, the Stila Shimmer and Glow liquid eyeshadow is really new to me, so I'm still kind of learning with it. But I actually really like the way it turned out. This is like the perfect lid shade for me. It's very metallic, very bright, so I'm glad that I got to kind of try my hand at it again. This is definitely something I'll be using a lot. It's just it's something I kind of have to learn how to use because I'm not super familiar with the whole concept of liquid eyeshadow. Now, the pencil liner from Jordana I wasn't super happy with. With pencil liners, I always get kind of a thicker line than what I want. And I don't really like to put eyeliner in the waterline, so that's why I didn't do that. It just never ends up staying, and I don't know, I just don't really like that look anyway, but I mean, I feel like it looks okay. It doesn't look horrible. It's just not my preferred eyeliner. And then the lipstick combo was a little weird. I normally wouldn't even use a lip liner with these e.l.f. matte lip colors because they're already pretty precise to work with, and since they're matte, they do have good staying power. But it worked well with Tawny. I felt like I probably didn't really need to put the lip liner underneath it, but it worked out fine and it ended up looking okay. So we'll see, maybe that'll help extend the wear time of it, but either way, I mean, I'm happy with the way that this looks. I do really like this lip color. I always forget that I have it because I just don't normally go for such a bold lip, but I do really like it. And then the e.l.f. setting spray, which I almost forgot to use. It's alright. I don't notice this making a huge difference for me, but it's nice to have. I feel like it might help a little bit with the wear time of my makeup, but again, this is probably just something that I'll end up using up and not repurchasing because it's just okay. I just kind of have a neutral feeling on that one. That was really fun. I really enjoyed doing this, and I feel like it was a great way to shop my stash and use a combination of products that I wouldn't normally use. I think I'm going to start doing this regularly, like just on my own. And if you guys would like to see me do this again in a future video, definitely let me know. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I really love the idea of shopping my stash because I think that so often we kind of neglect a lot of the products that we have and we forget to use them. So this was a really fun way to get use out of some products I haven't used in a while. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of a different style video. If you did, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.